Hey everyone, it's Miss O'Donnell. So now that we know what a radian is, we're going to use that to solve for arc length and sector area. So now instead of measuring our angle in degrees, we're going to be able to solve for arc length and sector area when our angle is in radians. So let's just think about what arc length is. So we had our formula, arc length equals central angle divided by 360 times 2 times pi times r. So the only thing that's going to change when we're using radians is that we don't want this 360 degrees, right? This represented a full circle in degrees, so we got to think about how many radians are in a full circle. So hopefully you remember it's 2 pi, so all I'm going to do in this formula is swap out the 360 for 2 pi. I'm going to make it a little bit easier for you, so you'll notice that there's a 2 pi at the bottom of our fraction and a 2 pi up here. We are going to just cancel those out. So we're left with our central angle times r. So what I would do is write down this formula. So arc length equals central angle times r. I'm going to show you how to use it. So I want to find the arc length of AB when my angle is 3 pi over 4 radians. So I've got my formula, central angle times r. My central angle is 3 pi over 4 times my radius is 5. So all I'm going to do is multiply straight across. 3 pi times 5 is 15 pi. 4 just goes across, so I'm left with 15 pi over 4. So you could leave it like that, or you could plug it into your calculator. 15 times pi divided by 4. You get 11.78 centimeters. So as long as you have this formula written down, this is way easier than degrees. All you got to do is take your angle and multiply it by your radius. So go ahead and pause the video and try to solve for the arc length of AB. You should have been using this formula, arc length equals central angle times r. Your central angle is 5 pi over 7, and your radius is 9. So 5 pi over 7 times 9. Multiply straight across. 5 pi times 9 is 45 pi. Bring over the 7. I wanted to figure out what that is in centimeters. I could do 45 times pi divided by 7. I get 20.196 centimeters. And that's arc length for radians. We're going to use our formula, arc length equals central angle times r, plug in our angle, plug in our r, multiply them. So now sector area, we're going to do the same thing. So here's our formula in degrees. I don't want 360 degrees. I want how many radians are in a full circle. So I'm going to swap out that 360 for a 2 pi. To simplify our formula, we've got a pi on top and a pi on the bottom, so we're going to cancel those out. We're left with central angle divided by 2 times r squared. Now I'm going to rearrange this formula just a little bit because trust me, it's a lot easier if you move the divide by 2 underneath the r squared. So go ahead and write down this formula. Sector area equals central angle times r squared over 2. Here's an example. So I want to know the area of this sector where the angle is pi over 3. So I'm going to fill in my angle and my radius. My central angle is pi over 3 times my radius is 6, so 6 squared over 2. So I have pi over 3 times 6 squared over 2. I'm going to multiply straight across. Pi times 6 squared is 36 pi. 3 times 2 is 6. So I got 36 pi over 6. If I wanted an actual number, I would do 36 times pi divided by 6. You get 18.85 feet squared. So here's an example for you to try on your own. So pause the video, find the area of this sector when the angle is 5 pi over 4 radians. So always start with your formula, central angle times r squared over 2. Your central angle is 5 pi over 4, your radius is 8. So I have 5 pi over 4 times 8 squared over 2. And multiply straight across. 5 pi times 8 squared is like 5 times 64. I get 320 pi. 4 times 2 is 8. So 320 pi divided by 8. 320 times pi divided by 8. I get 125.66 feet squared. And that's all of it. So we know the formula for arc length. We know it for sector area. Make sure you wrote down the new formulas for when we use radians. So arc length was central angle times radius. And sector area was central angle times radius squared over 2. Multiply straight across, plug it into your calculator, and that's all you do. So if you have any questions, you can email me. You can also join me for office hours. You can go ahead and start your exit ticket now. Make sure you're using your new formulas. If you see a question that has degrees, make sure you use the old formulas. So make sure you're paying attention to whether the angle is measured in degrees or radians.